Mr. Speaker, Senator Ledama has actually helped to affirm my point that he knows the Americas more than he does his own Africa. Mr. Speaker, you can see he only mentioned four countries out of 54, Mr. Speaker. And forget about the countries. This man, because I know him because he's my friend, if you are with him in America, he will describe for you street by street of some of the bigger cities there. Outside this Nairobi, I doubt, Mr. Speaker, if there is any other African country that he knows the name of a street, including neighborhood here in Dar es Salaam, Mr. Speaker. Maybe Kigali for other reasons, but Mr. Speaker. Anyway, on a more serious note, there is something else, Senator Ledama, you need to check. You know, I followed, you said something that got my attention about Captain Ibrahim Traore. I used to also fall for his hype, like many people fall on TikTok. I saw another journalist another time saying, oh, did you see the way he was cheered when he arrived for the inauguration of the Ghanaian new president, Mr. Speaker? And I was excited like most people, until I did some further research about what is exactly going on in Burkina Faso. And I want to challenge Senator Ledama to do the same, perhaps counter-check Senator Ledama, the things that you read online and the reality on ground, as Kenyans say. And I was shocked actually to learn that despite all this hype and the things that we read about, the things that they are doing, you know, first of all, I am not a fan of coups. I am a firm believer in democracy. I strongly believe that if there were lesser coups in Africa and more transitions by the ballot, Africa will advance better than it is doing through coups and by the power of the bullet. For that reason, I am not a big fan of that particular gentleman. But more importantly, the reason why the military, led by him, took over Burkina Faso is that they insisted that there were challenges with security in their country. And there were terrorists ravaging around, killing people, and all these kind of challenges. You need to check Senator Ledama, because from the research that I did, is that actually since they took over power, and you know wars are very costly. You can see what is happening to the gentleman in Ukraine. See how he's being embarrassed and the things that he's being taught, because wars are extremely expensive. If you don't have a way through which you will fund your war, then you better not start it. So the unfortunate situation in that country, and we need to check, unfortunately they are not part of the Great Lakes, but this is just to make the point that we need to understand our continent better, is that since coming into power by the bullet of Captain Ibrahim Traore, they have lost 40% more territory to the terrorists that were ravaging people. So it's easy to read all these things online, TikTok, and people say, oh, certain things are happening. But do your research further. And that's the tragedy with Africa. That is part of what this report is telling us, that as parliamentarians, Mr. Speaker, in African nations, we know very little about our continent. Of course, the issue that you further raised, Senator Ledama, which is extremely important, is the challenges of travel within this continent. You remember, in 2023, President William Ruto flagged off outside here, just next to Parliament at KICC, the first consignment of goods that were supposed to be sold from Kenya into the rest of the African countries under the ACFTA arrangement, Mr. Speaker. It took 3 months for those goods to get from Nairobi to Accra, Ghana, because of the challenges of logistics, border points, areas where there are conflict, poor road network and infrastructure, Mr. Speaker. Very serious challenges that this continent is facing, Mr. Speaker, which, unless we as the leaders, we that serve in Parliament, almost all our governments and institutions on the continent, Mr. Speaker, have their budgets drawn in their parliaments. And we must consciously begin to make decisions that further make our countries more competitive. We must think beyond, Mr. Speaker, just passing division of revenue and saying we have done our duty as a Senate of the Republic of Kenya. We must know, how do we open up markets for our farmers, Mr. Speaker? That's why we must appreciate President Trump for these tariffs, because they are a wake-up call to us. We don't need to fight, Mr. Speaker, to access that market if we were to trade and make it possible for Africans to trade amongst themselves, Mr. Speaker. Half of the goods that we export, Mr. Speaker, actually come back to the rest of the continent at a higher cost. Lipton tea, which leaves Kericho, Mr. Speaker, at $2, arrives back in Accra, having been processed at their facility in France and Netherlands, Mr. Speaker, at $4 or $6, Mr. Speaker. Just across the same continent, trading amongst ourselves, but through intermediaries that are based in other continents that are better organized. And therefore, until we begin following through the recommendations of such reports, Mr. Speaker, we continue to make a mockery of the citizens that we lead, of the time that we spent in these conferences talking about the challenges and the things that we need to do to address and make our continent better, Mr. Speaker, because the solutions lie within ourselves. If Africa was to trade amongst itself, Mr. Speaker, we would earn more respect. We wouldn't even need to borrow the kinds of money that we are borrowing, Mr. Speaker, to run our economies, Mr. Speaker, because that is money that we are losing out. This is a continent of the future. And I want to appreciate the legislators that met last weekend, Mr. Speaker. I didn't get a chance because of prior arrangement, and Senator Ledama also. I don't know why. By the time he was informing me, it was hardly hours into the event. But the next one I will not miss, Mr. Speaker. And I plead that I be invited prior, because they are discussing about the future and what is our place, including on matters very important such as the climate change, which is being addressed in this particular document. It is until we begin to converse amongst ourselves, at least even at the level of leadership, to ask ourselves very basic questions, Mr. Speaker. Why are we not able to ratify even the simplest of proposals that have been put up, even just here at the East African community, Mr. Speaker? Why does it have to cost me close to 100 shillings to call a fellow East African in Tanzania, Mr. Speaker? Yet the companies, actually, the telco companies that own these networks, actually, they are shareholders in each other. It's Vodacom on the other side. They own 40% of Safaricom here on this side, Mr. Speaker. Why are we making it difficult for people even just to communicate? The very least, thing that you can do, just to check on a friend, Mr. Speaker. It's really unfortunate that after these conferences, and this parliament perhaps is a well-oil of resources and very good, well-thought-out reports such as this one, Mr. Speaker, that have been accumulated from 1963 with very good ideas. In fact, Mr. Speaker, we don't need to travel anymore. We don't need to, we just need to go to the parliamentary library, which unfortunately 90% of legislators in this house don't even know where it is, Mr. Speaker, to check on the reports that have been brought to this house from such conferences, from years gone by, and parliaments before, from the 1st to the 13th parliament that we are sitting in today, Mr. Speaker, of such initiatives and the things that enact this, legislate on these issues of good governance, democracy, climate change. All these things have been talked about, Mr. Speaker. But the challenge is, do we follow through with implementation? Or are we satisfied, for example, today, that after we pass this report, you can see from part of the recommendations, even this particular report, and I'm happy many of the colleagues that spoke on this particular topic, Mr. Speaker, refer to it, that we're actually being challenged to legislate on this, push for policy change with this regards. At least this one is on a very alive topic, because climate change is a conversation that Kenya actually has taken leadership in on the global stage, and even continentally here. We gather here each year during the Africa Climate Summit, and I don't know even when this year's will be. If there's no other country ready to host, Mr. Speaker, I hope that the President will actually still host it like we did in 2023 and 2024, Mr. Speaker, because until we learn to manage our environment and address the issues that continue to arise out of climate change, Mr. Speaker, we are actually, I like the phrase that the script writer or the speech writer of the Secretary General of the UN normally uses. It's a mad dash towards the end of the world that everybody is involved in. That in all these things we might be thinking we are developing the world, but we're actually rushing ourselves and making the end of the world closer. with our violation of the climate and the things that we are doing. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge every member of this delegation, Senator Allie, Senator Hazena, together with our colleagues from the National Assembly, Rendikiri and Kakai Bissau, members that are both known to me personally, that they should go beyond the call of duty of travel, Mr. Speaker, and ensure that...
You are watching Wasos TV.